I want to talk a little bit about the Blackhawks with their three first-round picks. You have somebody from the SHL and Anton Frandell going third, and then two USHL players and one from Fargo at 29, Mason West, who plays football, and then Vaslav Nestrasil at 25, who played for Muskegon Lumberjacks and now is going to the NCAA at UMass. So can you talk to me about what their draft was, and also Parker Holmes and Nathan Bem? But can you talk to me about our first or their first three first rounders?
Yeah, so well the Mason West one I think is such like a Kyle Davidson pick. I think like a lot of people would look at that pick and see the risk tag to it. But I think what he's looking at is like is the raw potential. Like you're talking about a multi-sport athlete. You're talking about a guy that clearly has a high IQ from being a quarterback, and I just think when you're looking at the Blackhawks too as an organization, like when we're talking about Connor Bedard, and I just want to pull up like his stats quickly in terms Mason West, but I look at the Blackhawks too, and I just think they have now almost like a little bit of everything, right? Like after the Spencer Knight trade last year, you look at the defense group that they're building. I'm not trying to get Blackhawks fans too excited here, but you need to realize, and I think a lot of people already do, that they are going to have one of the best defense cores in the league very, very soon. Like, I don't think I need to tell you that, Anthony. I don't think I need to tell too many Blackhawks fans, but you look at the complete structure of their team, and I was actually joking about this with the Calgary Flames the other day, too, is like, it's never a bad thing to have two or three, like, very good right shot defensemen. And with Levshunov and Rinzel, like, be excited. That's something to be excited about. I think what the Blackhawks did here in this draft is realize, okay, we have enough defensemen for the most part. Like we have our 7 or 8 guys that are going to be NHLers. Like I feel bad for guys like Del Mastro or Allen. Like they're in a tough competition, right? Like they're in a tough spot. That's why I even joke, like, do you move a guy like Connor Murphy because of the roster spots that are limited, but you also want a veteran in there. But I'm kind of moving away from your question, but it's relevant to the conversation.
It
What
is
they
relevant.
did what they did in terms of the forward selections here is you drafted a little bit of everything. You drafted the guy I compared him. It's funny, the first same first name, but the Anton Lindell conversation and what he just did for the Florida Panthers. I look at that and I think Frondell, and I know there's already conversations about him maybe starting the year with the Blackhawks. I think Frondell is that perfect aspect to play as that third line. I think when you look at the Blackhawks, and I'm looking at it right now, just like Frank Nazar is going to be probably your number two long term behind Bedard. And then you already had like other skill guys, like an Oliver Moore. It's going to be tough for him. Like you're probably seeing him on the wing just because of that positional strength already. I thought honestly, I know you said focus on the first three picks, but I thought Nathan Bem was probably their best value pick, to be honest. I think I had him as like an early second round pick. They got him in the third round. Big body, right winger. Like I think the whole conversation on the Blackhawks was like maybe you go for that winger to play with Bedard down the line. I think the fact that he's already almost 200 pounds, scored over 30 goals, I believe, and I think less games than he could have played. So I thought that was a really good pick for them out of the WHL. And I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you had said like Nestrasil was like the worst kept secret that the Blackhawks were going to pick him. It was just a matter of like late in the first round or second round. So I know a little less about Nestrasil. I could probably provide more insight on Nathan Bem and then of course Parker Holmes. So just to kind of lead into that part of the question, it's very interesting. Like I think for me, and I'm not trying to knock down Parker. I think for probably for him internally too, he wasn't sure if he was going to get drafted or not, maybe because ultimately he was injured, right? Like I think you only got that sneak peek of Holmes. But it's funny. So he scored 1 goal, and it was actually probably like one of the nastier, low, like underrated Bulldogs goals of the year. I don't know if you've seen it yet or the highlight, but just a ridiculous shot. Like everyone was kind of just shocked on the kind of the odd man rush going the other way, but like a ridiculous shot. I think that's kind of the best way I can put it. Like I kind of mentioned to you off air, but I think internally he probably wants to improve on his skating and that aspect of his game. But when you have a guy that's the natural size of 6'4" and he has a ridiculous shot and can be physical. And it sucks because I wanted to confirm this again, but again, I know it's like an internal process, obviously, for any team when they're trying to navigate through an injury. I don't know if it was a hit or a fight. It may have been the fight. He did get into a fight earlier in the season, so I know his injury ended up being, I believe, a hand or wrist injury. That's the only other conversation I'll have for a player like that. Mason West, I don't think is ever going to get into that. I mean, obviously the size, but I don't think he's ever going to get into the fighting aspect of it. I mean, he could. I mean, it's funny. I always say Tage Thompson is like the softest giant in the league, and he got into a fight. I mean, he didn't do overly well. He should have done way better for his size. But what I'm getting at is Parker Holmes might get into that. But I wonder if maybe he's a little bit more careful going into this season because you don't want to miss another half season or plus to really show that development. So I think his ceiling is probably that third, fourth checking guy, guy that can definitely provide secondary scoring. To me, it's definitely a high ceiling bet for Davidson. Similar, like I think that's kind of what they did with Mason West as another example. But I was pleasantly surprised. I thought because he was injured for most of the year and really didn't get much of that sneak peek, he was going to either maybe not get drafted or just fall in the draft because of that. But I was happy to see he got picked middle of the draft. And I think clearly Kyle Davidson loved spending time watching the Bulldogs once again this season. So I got to probably watch him for a couple of games and liked what he saw.
Mason West's comp was actually Tage Thompson at the draft, so I like that you threw that in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if there's an injured draft eligible lumberjack, just know he's gonna be. I mean, draft eligible bulldog, just know he's gonna be on
Yeah.
the Blackhawks because Merrick Vanacker and then Parker Holmes. I feel like they're there most nights or they're scouts, so that is interesting that they continue to pick. Why do you think that the Blackhawks are falling in love with Brantford Bulldogs? Like, why are we not trading for Zach Hyman at this point?
I know, you're onto something there. Well, I'll say this: I haven't told the story too often, but I'll for my guy Anthony, I'll give this story. But very long story short. But maybe I did tell this on the last episode, but I'll just give the long story short of it. I was at like a Boston Pizza before a playoff game, not this past year, but the year before. I feel like I did tell you the story, but I haven't told it on any other show. Kyle Davidson was sitting there with a scout, and I heard Merrick Vanacker's name be maybe rhymed off like a handful to 10 times. And I was just like, yep, they're taking him. So I don't know. Maybe Kyle Davidson loves the local Boston Pizza across from the Brantford Civic Center. It's possible, man. He might just have one of the best servers there. Had some good pizza, Boston Pizza. I'm giving the Trey Livings a shout there, but I don't know. I actually don't know. I would imagine it's just a matter of once you set your like eyes on a team, you already have kind of a positive mindset on their scouting staff and development. I'm sure there's a relationship too now because they've spent so much time there that whether it's meeting some of the Bulldogs like upper management or meeting some of the development staff, once you gain that trust, it's definitely an encouraging aspect to bring those players in because also once it comes down to it, whether it's their overage year or just down the line, it's good to have those relationships because then the NHL team, of course, they'll always trump the junior team, but the NHL team can have more of that dialogue with the junior team to be like, this is maybe how we want to handle the player. Or if it comes down to an injury, it's that good relationship. So I've heard there's some of that stuff going around. Like, for example, the Toronto Maple Leafs with their fourth round pick selected Victor Johansson, defenseman. Well, funny enough, they pick with their second round pick, their first pick of the draft this year, a guy on the same teammates. So there's that trend going around in the league sometimes. Obviously, having your eyes set on a team and then seeing those positive, I would say, the positive traits of another player on the same team, but also kind of that trust factor I talked to you about. If you can build that trust as an organization, as an NHL organization with a development team or a team overseas, then you also have that trust factor on how they're going to handle that prospect going forward.
That was awesome. That was incredible. Everybody just learned so much on that. Can you tell can you like tell me if you think Bedard will win a Stanley Cup with the Blackhawks? Because this is a question I've been asking a lot of people, and I just want your thoughts.
Yeah, you know what? I think the best way I can put it is, and I'm not saying the Oilers and Connor McDavid are never going to win a Stanley Cup,
Mhm.
but they were that close 2 years in a row, specifically with like extremely suspect goaltending. And I just look at the Blackhawks, Anthony. Do they have the goaltender in my eyes? Yes. Do they have the defense, the building defense? Yes. When you have a generational talent like Connor Bedard, and you can build enough around him, he'll make it work. But then on top of that, when you have a stellar goalie in your net on top of the defense group, yeah, you're gonna win some cups. So I think Blackhawks fans can also just relate to what you've seen in the past with the defense groups that you've had, and realize how special it like what's being built doesn't happen overnight is what I'm trying to get at. Chicago's done it the right way in my eyes. Like I look at other teams, and I'm not trying to knock other teams specifically here, but I look at a team like Buffalo. They've had Dowling and Power here on the left side. Who's been on that right side, right? Like finally, maybe they might have the goalie. I look at the Detroit Red Wings for the longest time. Who's been the goalie? Like Sebastian Costa might end up being that. But again, so much time. I look at what Chicago's done here 2, 3, 4 years from now, like don't overthink it. We're gonna look back and be laughing at all the concerns and all the question marks around Connor Bedard. I actually, honestly, Anthony, and I'm not just saying this because you're a Blackhawks fan and a lot of Hawks fans are gonna be watching this. I think it is truly foolish that people are doubting Connor Bedard. I think it is truly foolish. I love Macklin Celebrini, but I'm going to reiterate this again. I do think Connor Bedard is the higher ceiling player. I think by the end of it, he is going to be the better career NHLer. I think when we're going to look back, and that's no knock on Celebrini. I think Celebrini is going to be an elite talent. I think he's going to put up 1,000 points in his career. I think he's going to do all of it. But when I look at Connor Bedard, that type of talent does not come around often. I think the overall creativity and IQ, he does things that I wouldn't even imagine an NHL player could do. Is he close to the Connor McDavid resume yet? With no cup, obviously, no. But I think with what the Blackhawks are building and what Connor Bedard has coming, I hope this kind of answers your question. But I'm just saying, I think it's foolish to think that they're not in that going in that direction, and maybe sooner rather than later. But there's also a big free agent class in 2026, so I think that the Blackhawks can just keep that space open. I mean, I think Bedard's going to have a big bounce back year this year, and I think it's going to remind the league and a lot of those upcoming free agents that, hey, I might want to play with this guy.
Yeah, that fires me up. Maybe not this season because obviously I
Yeah.
think do you think that we're going to be about or they are going to be a bottom five team in the Gavin McKenna race?
It's interesting. I had the Blackhawks as maybe one of the surprise teams last year, and I was just disappointed because like I think some of the forwards that like the only guy that really showed well outside of the prospect pool and the younger players was Ryan Donato, and they did bring him back, but I think that was like the only player that really held his end of the bargain. I understand to kind of reach that cap floor, you bring in veteran and leadership guys like Dickinson, Foligno. To answer your question in short, I think it would obviously the storyline would be spectacular if the Blackhawks were anywhere near McKenna. I think, but at the same time, I think the league would also crumble. Like the two scenarios, Anthony, that I actually thought about this. The two scenarios that would cause the most stir and controversy in the league would be either Chicago or Pittsburgh getting the first overall pick next year. If one of those two teams get the first overall pick and get Gavin McKenna, there is going to be an uproar. So I'll leave it at that. I don't think the Blackhawks are going to be quite like right there, but we also just watched the Islanders make the ultimate jump to get into first overall. So you really never know. Honestly, the uproar and controversy if Pittsburgh and Chicago doesn't even finish in the bottom five and still get the first overall pick, that's going to be a different level of uproar.
Yeah, I was thinking you were going to say Pittsburgh there just because like I could not imagine. And I'm so glad the Rangers gave them this year's pick and
Yeah.
not their
Oh, that would
unprotected
have imagine
2026.
that. Oh my goodness. Imagine that. The Rangers have a crap fest of a year and then Pitts.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, I'm with you. I think that was the right call by the Rangers. Even though I think they are going to be better next year, I think it was just like don't even risk it. You never know.
And then my last question for you is about the Leafs. Like, what do you think with Marner leaving, and do you see them in the Stanley Cup race because it was an addition by subtraction, and you also filled out your team a little bit more?
Yeah, so I've been really torn about this. Like my whole I guess my whole part of why I'm torn is not because I think you should have ran it back. But because I was kind of on that vibe like 3, 4 years ago, man. Like it's so funny because at some point for the channel, I'm gonna like put together a bit of a compilation of all like my like rants about this guy, and not to say that Mitch Marner is not a great elite talent. It's in certain markets, you just have to have it. Like you have to be able to go above it. Like I just think about the title of Patrick Kane and Showtime. Like, yeah, you could make the argument Toronto's like at least on the media side and how they're covered bigger, but when it came down to it, I think about the players that performed the best on the biggest stage for a big market. And I think about some of the players that played for Detroit, some of the players that played for Chicago, some of the players that played for Montreal. And Montreal's had a lot less talent and gone way further. I just think for a guy that was from Toronto, he should have understood it and expected it way more. So I'm going to go over that because at the end of the day, it actually is not a Mitch Marner problem. It's the guys that decided to sign the contracts the way they did. It's the guys that didn't want change. I know it's come out and it's very public now. But yeah, I was really frustrated 2 years ago when Kyle Dubas was finally ready to move on from Mitch Marner, one of the core players, and Brendan Shanahan said, "Nah, you're out. That's not happening." And that's the problem too. I think it's great to have good human beings running your organization, but when it comes down to it, some of the most successful organizations in recent memory are able to, yes, value the personal relationships and have loyalty towards some of their players, but also with an understanding that business trumps those relationships when it comes to championships and success. I look at some of the players over the years that the Blackhawks had to move on from and trade, agree or disagree with it, they were business decisions. I look at Vegas, agree or disagree with it, whether it was the dumping Marc-Andre Fleury or some of the stuff that Vegas did, agree or disagree with it, it led them to a Stanley Cup. So what I'm getting at is, am I okay with the direction the Leafs are going with finally? Yes, because you can't do anything differently. Uh, I'm frustrated because it should have been a decision that was made 2, 3 years ago before his no movement clause was kicked in, and when you would have got a dumb amount of value back for a guy that even 2, 3 years ago was putting up 80, 90 points, and was seen as one of the more elite two-way wingers in the league. They would have got a lot of value back, man. Like it's as simple as that. So I was saying that so much back then. It's frustrating to look now. My one thing that I'm very curious about is Trey Living's kind of been dealt a hand a couple times about like making a move in the offseason. Obviously, in a different sense when Matthew Tkachuk requested a trade and he had to kind of deal with that. I still stand by what I said back then. His hands were tied, and this was well before Trey Living was tied to the Leafs, so it's not biased. This was my take then, and I stand by it. He did a spectacular job with what he was dealt with. Like, sure, we could make a big argument about he should have just not signed Johnny Huberdeau. We could make that argument all day, every day. And we could have said, hey, maybe he should have just flipped Huberdeau in another trade and got assets there. But getting Mackenzie Weegar and a first on top of Huberdeau for a guy that literally announced to the world he wants out, like, it is good value. A lot of people today that I've talked to would value Mackenzie Weegar as a top 25 defenseman in the National Hockey League. So yeah, Matthew Tkachuk went to Florida, won back-to-back cups, all that stuff. So what I'm getting at is I do think Trey Living is going to have a big trade up his sleeve this offseason. I think Leaf fans might even be surprised by it. I don't know if I've talked about the player. I do think he's working every angle. I would not be surprised in the last week he's talked to every single NHL team. So something is going to happen. It's going to be significant. I would just say to Leaf fans, we're just going to have to wait and see. But there will be a move. I'm pretty confident in that.
I love that foreshadowing. It's going to be 3 firsts for Lucas Reichel. You heard it here first.
There you go, Blackhawks fans. Let's
Yeah.
go. Maybe Tyler Bertuzzi returned to Toronto. That would be fun.
Oh,
I
yeah.
actually wouldn't mind that because I think Blackhawks fans expected a little bit more from what I've heard and seen. I also think that in terms of transitioning for Chicago, Bertuzzi's kind of that transition player for them, a little bit of a bite. Hey, I'll say this, man. Let's throw a couple assets at you guys. You guys bring back legendary fourth line center David Kampf, and we'll bring back Tyler Bertuzzi.
Wow. What a name. I haven't heard that in a while. For a throwback to what you were talking about with Mitch Marner, you said that you want players that succeed in the playoffs. Patrick Kane was 21 years old when he scored that overtime game winner for the Stanley Cup. 21. I can't imagine when if I was 21 that just potted the game-winning goal of overtime.